All join palms. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. Does anyone know what the word karma means? Action. Yes, I know you all would have said that. I know no one would have said what goes around comes around. I know no one would have said getting what you deserve. I know no one would have said anything along those lines. But karma is action. And that's the literal definition of the word. Often people think that karma is what you get. That's my karma, I deserved it, or that's their karma, they deserved it, or they did this, so I hope that happens, right? And karma is what you give. It's what you think, it's what you say, and what you do is the three ways we generate karma and what we bring into our lives. Now, that karma that we bring into our lives has an impact on those around us. And for us to understand our karma is to understand that every situation you are in right now, your entire life, you created the moment that you're in right now. And the challenge with karma is that we don't often want to sit with the karma that we have created in our life. We want to fix it, change it, run away from it, right? But if you've created certain conditions in your life for years, we have to own that. If you try to escape from it, if you try to run from it, if you try to excuse it, you're going to find yourself creating more karma that's probably going to put you in a similar situation you're already in. So a friend of mine years ago, and he called and he said, "Jeff, she left." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "She left." And I think I said again, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "She left." And I said, "What happened?" He said, "I don't know. I just came home and she had 2 bags in her hand and said, 'I'm leaving.'" I was like, "Well, what did you do?" He said, "I called you." I said, "Why'd you call me?" And he said, "Well," and he's a very strong practitioner, Tibetan Buddhist for many years. And he said, "Well, I called you because I know what I wanted to do. And I know my karma created this situation. And if I did what I wanted to do, I would have created more karma that I would have had to deal with later on." And I said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I won't repeat those things right now. But he shared what he wanted to go do, and I said, "Well, I'm glad you called me." All right? And I bring this up for many reasons, but mainly just to recognize that if you have challenges in your life, if you have difficulties in your life, if you're not getting what you want in your life, begin to recognize that those are the conditions you have created in your life. And we have to kind of own that a little bit. And we don't often want to own that. We want to excuse it, we want to fix it, we want to run from it, we want to do some Buddhist stuff for a little bit of time and think it'll correct it. But one of my favorite expressions is all karma bears fruit. So when I look at the first 25 years of my life, I got a lot of not great stuff waiting for me. Right? So you practice, you cultivate loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity. You practice diligence, concentration, wisdom, these kind of key buzzwords you always hear. Because when all that stuff comes back, all the karmic seeds that you've planted, you want to be mentally, emotionally, spiritually stable enough to be able to face it honestly, authentically, genuinely, and say, yes, this is my karma. This is what I have created. And yeah, that's all. That's all I want to say on that right now. So we'll start with the meditation practice. In case your mind wanders during meditation, which it might, at least allow it to wander to whatever karma you've created and then try to come back to the breath. Right? So for those who may be sitting for the first time, a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. All right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Okay, don't judge your practice. Don't ask yourself, is this working? Is this not working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? We're just going to sit. You're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside the room. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. The practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on the cushions, often it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands are on the knees or in the lap. If you're on the chairs or on the benches, also just trying to sit up straight. I'll guide us as we begin. If you need to move during meditation, simply move. If you need to cough, simply cough. Movement or coughing doesn't make you a bad meditator, it just means your leg hurts or you need to cough. And for those in the back, if they are very loud right there, you're welcome to kind of tap on that door and ask them to keep it down if they're bothering you. Wonderful. Great practitioners you are. I'll guide us as we begin. We'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed, whatever's comfortable. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settling into a natural rhythm of the breath. Knowing throughout the practice you'll hear sounds. These are not distractions. not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Gently guide your attention, focus, to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release it, that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from the practice, just sitting, breathing. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit, hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the Buddhist statue or incense or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than anyone in this room. who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for every one of us in this room, regardless of where we come from or what we believe in or where we think we're going, our whole life is filled with things that happen. We react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. That's what we get. Now, the practice of meditation, most people respond quietly, peacefully, still. But the question is, how do you respond every other 20-minute period of your life? And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with the mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. Meditation is not necessarily fun, but it's free. Meditation is free, Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do. And learning to be kind to yourself and every person you encounter, every moment of your life. That's why it's so simple. You just have to go be nice to people. Meditation is not an escape, as often people think it is. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, this is simply going to make you become aware of it. And then the work begins when you leave a place like this. Because in here, for the most part, it's relatively quiet, peaceful, calm. Nobody's yelling at you. Right? But when you walk out these doors, the world out there didn't finish their meditation. They don't care that you finished yours. It's going 1,000 miles an hour, and you're very quickly going to get wrapped up in everything that's going on out there. So we practice this to learn to bring a steady, clear, calm, compassionate mind into everything we do. But it's a practice, it's a challenge, it's difficult. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything around us, hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they would do this, wishing they would do that. When we stop that and we work on our mind and our reaction to what's going around us, life gets simpler. And that's why I shared that story at the beginning about my buddy who called me, and he understood that at that moment, everything that had gone on in the past was done. Understanding all the questions, right? Getting all the answers, trying to figure out why. The only thing that mattered at that moment was what was his next action going to be? What was his next thought, his next word, his next physical action? And he knew that his thoughts weren't pleasant. His words wouldn't have been pleasant. And his actions would have been less pleasant than the first two. And he said to me, I just want to mind my karma. I don't think I said that part the first time around. And it was one of the most beautiful things I've been a part of. I knew him personally, I knew them personally for a long time. So I couldn't understand what he was going through, but I understood the depth of the situation. And all he was concerned about was minding his karma in that moment. And to me, it's been a lesson to watch a friend who went through something like that, to be so present and so aware of what's happening in each moment. And even in a situation like that, no matter how traumatic it might seem, no matter how miserable he might feel, he understood the importance of every action in each moment. And to me, this is understanding what the Buddha taught. Being aware of our karma. and what we create. The Buddha also taught that if you have been born into this human life, you have phenomenal karma. How many of you woke up today thinking your karma is phenomenal? I see one hand, right? There's probably at least 5 of you who think that way. We have great karma. The Buddha also said, if you want to understand past karma, your past karma, look at your present situation. If you want to understand your future karma, look at your present situation. So, here we are. What do we do with our thoughts and our words and our actions going forward? That is what I suggest as a practitioner we focus on. Because that's the only thing that's going to alter your life. And most people don't come to this practice because everything in their life is perfectly peaceful and happy and wonderful. Right? Sure as heck isn't how I got here. So, I'd rather just stop there, open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with that I can address, and we'll go from there. Yeah.
You believe in fate?
Say again?
Believe in fate?
Do I believe in fate?
Yeah.
Do I believe in fate?
Fate or faith? Like, fate.
You know, fate is, I believe, and I've kind of always believed this personally, and even when I kind of explore and study and practice the Buddhist teachings, it seems to align with kind of how I was raised or how I acted, as a kid, even when I was doing lots of stupid things, is I believe that there's kind of that expression in our culture that things happen for a reason, right? And I'm personally not a huge fan of that. I've always thought this way, and then again, when I apply what I learned through Buddhist teachings, it seems to make more sense to me, but I believe that things just happen. Right? And then we give it meaning. We give it reason. We justify it, we excuse it, we praise it, we downplay it. Right? Often we'll say, well, this terrible thing happened to me, but it's happening for a reason. Well, it's just happening, and then we will give it meaning, and we will find ways to cope with it. We will find, and psychologically, this is helpful, right? We have terrible things happen to us. There's kind of that silver lining that we try to look for in each terrible situation. But I don't believe that there's some underlying reason anything happened other than it's the karma that was created. Does that make sense? And like I said, I've always felt that way, and then when I try to apply what I've learned through Buddhist teachings to that exact question, to me it seems to really kind of come together as, often when wonderful things are happening to us, I guess, well, everybody's different, so I don't know if it's fair to say this, but often when wonderful things happen to us, we don't stop and wonder why. That's why I said it's not fair to say that, because everybody's different. Right? And we could go on a whole other subject there, right? Some people question, like, why is this wonderful thing happening to me? So that's why I stopped myself. Was that you who said that? Said not true? Yeah. So I get it. Some yes, some no. But often, and I'm making an assumption when I should never do, often I hear people say they don't question why good things are happening. But they more often seem to question why bad things are happening. Good things, we just roll with it sometimes, some people. Bad things, we want to know, why is that happening? So, I guess to answer your question, no. I don't believe in fate. I believe things happen. Yeah. Yeah, please.
Buddhism teach about faith?
Faith.
About the same question. I know this is what you believe in, but what is Buddhism teaching?
Well, I think and that was what Bill said. Fate and faith are two different things.
Yeah.
You were asking about fate. Did I address fate, right? The question about faith is a completely different question, which I can address that also, right? So, and even along the same lines, to address my understanding of Buddhist teachings about fate would be exactly what I just said. I'm kind of meshing my personal views growing up with what I learned from Buddhism is that the Buddha didn't teach fate. He taught karma, the law of cause and effect. And then our unenlightened minds give things reason. We give things justifications. We give excuses. We give, celebrations. But what the Buddha taught is things happen. Law of cause and effect. That is our entire existence, right? But we get excited about things that happen that are really wonderful, that feed ourself and our ego and our craving and our desires. And we get bummed about things that happen that we don't like. But either way, things are just happening. Does that make sense? So now faith, which is another good question, just another angle. It comes to play a little bit with regards to gods and goddesses. At that time when the Buddha was teaching, you were in India, so this is 500 years before Christ. So the God that often we refer to today, or the Christ that we refer to today, none of that existed back then. Right? So 500 years before Christ, they believed in India, lots of goddesses and lots of gods. And they asked the Buddha, what about this? And there were 12 or 14 questions he wouldn't answer. And one of them was about having belief, having faith in gods and goddesses. And he said, if you believe it, he said, I'm just a human, right? So I can't tell you about gods. If you believe in them, you believe in them. If you don't, you don't. What he wanted you to focus on was your actions, your karma, what you did. Right? That was what he taught. Right? And ultimately, even in a modern day, how most of us were raised, if you believe in God and you believe in heaven or hell or something like that, what determines for the most part where you go? Your actions. So that's where when I look at what I think, what I've learned and what I understand the Buddha to have taught, when you apply that to today, even if you're not one who believes in rebirth or reincarnation or, any of that kind of stuff, and you believe in one life, heaven or hell, phenomenal, keep that view. Still the practice is, what did the Buddha teach? And he taught us to be kind. He taught us not to harm. He taught us to be honest, to be moral. He taught us not to steal. Right? He taught very beautiful things which are very applicable to everyday life. Even with the Buddha's teachings himself, he said, question them. Don't believe them just because he was saying them, right? Don't have this blind faith that just because, this Buddha awakened one and telling you this, he said, try it. If these things work for you, then by all means. If these practices help you suffer less and others suffer less, then put them into your life. But if they don't, then abandon them. So I think that faith, for me as a practitioner, I have great faith that Buddhist practice helps me suffer less. I have great faith that if people embody what the Buddha taught, as well as what most great religious folks taught, then we all would suffer less. So I have great faith in the path. Does that make sense? And that's what I believe the Buddha was teaching. Does that answer your question? Yeah, for sure. Other questions? Yeah.
You made mention of the Zen class. What is that?
Of a what?
A Zen class.
A Zen
I
class?
think it's on hold right now for...
That's a random question, yeah. You couldn't have just asked me that in the hall, huh? Yes, the Zen class is on hold. But do you want me to talk about what the Zen class is? Or?
Yeah, and what does Zen mean?
Sure. So the word Zen, which is funny because anyone here other than John who's heard me say this 50 times, so your buddy pays attention, right? Anyone know what the word Zen means? Hysterical.
Meditate.
There you go. Chuck, you pay attention to, right? The word Zen actually means meditation, right? Comes from the Chinese word Chan, which is meditation. Initially comes back to jhana, right? Knowledge or gnosis. And what cracks me up is when we say the phrase Zen meditation, what we're actually saying is meditation, right? I mean, Zen in this culture, there's Zen cereal. There's Zen, probably Zen mouthwash. There's Zen everything. Everything is about being more Zen. And it's one of those things that, as a practitioner and as actually a Zen practitioner who my first introduction to Buddhist teachings was through Zen practice 23 years ago, and studying D.T. Suzuki and Shunryu Suzuki, I bite my tongue a lot and cringe because when somebody says they want to be more Zen, I don't want to yell at them. That would not be more Zen, right? So I just kind of, it's like you're patient with that. And when I feel when people say they want to be more Zen, they want to be more peaceful, they want to be more calm, all those kinds of things, right? To be Zen is phenomenal. But what is Zen is really your question, right? The literal translation is meditation. Zen is an experience. It is a present time awareness. It's not even peaceful. Oh, I thought you said peaceful. Zen doesn't mean peace. I hate to shatter. It's like Santa Claus isn't real. I hate to shatter this for you all. If anybody didn't know that, I know, I'm sorry. Zen is an experience of the present moment, right? Often you'll hear it say present time awareness. It is beyond any sort of judgment of a situation. It is not peaceful and it is not miserable. It is not happy, it is not sad, right? This is the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra. It talks about duality and going beyond duality. It is beyond dualistic thinking. Zen is an experience of the present moment as it is. Not this is the present moment and now I'm going to judge it, critique it, analyze it, and decide if I like it. It is simply the present moment. That is it. And that present moment will repeat over and over and over again for every moment of your entire life. And the question we ask ourselves is, how many of those present moments are we actually present in? And how many of those moments are we wishing we were elsewhere? How many of those moments are we being wrapped up in how peaceful we are or how miserable we are? Right? Pizza, for example. Do you like pizza? Great. All right. So if you eat pizza, and I tell you, or I ask you, what does it taste like? And you describe it to me. Is that description of what it tastes like what it tastes like? No. Once you start talking about it, you've lost it. So when you asked what is Zen, what I really should have done was said, next question, please. Maybe a great Zen master would have done something like that, or they would have thrown something at you. You're kind of far away, so I would have missed and hit someone else, right? But it's an experience of the present moment. And we spend so much of our lives trying to describe things. But imagine going through your life and actually being present with things as they arise and going beyond judgment of them and just experiencing them. It's a beautiful practice. So, yeah. Yes?
Would you say something about duality?
Next question. Say something about duality. I mean, our entire lives is built on a dualistic thinking, right? So this is, again, you can Google this, the Heart Sutra, Diamond Sutra. It's part of what's called the Prajnaparamita, Perfection of Wisdom Sutras in the Mahayana school of Buddhism. And duality is what we do every moment of our lives. We live in this world where it's too hot or it's too cold, right? I'm too full, I'm too hungry. I like this song, I don't like that song. I like this shirt, I don't like that shirt. I want these shoes, I don't want that shoes. That shoes, those shoes. You know what I meant, right? Even that, duality, like I said that. But I was so conditioned to think that what I just said was wrong, so I felt like I had to explain it. When every one of you probably knew what I meant, even though my grammar wasn't correct. But we were conditioned to think that we must be grammatically correct in everything we say. Right? So our entire lives we're conditioned to think things are supposed to be a certain way. And we use that to judge everything we do. And it is in fact that judgment of every situation that leads to dukkha, suffering. Right? I mean, if you didn't want anything else than what you have in your life right now, you'd be so zen. But what we have isn't enough. It's not good enough, it's not strong enough, it's not fast enough, it's not this enough, it's not that enough. And once we get done doing all of the it's not this enough with things, we then do that with people. They're not this enough, they're not that enough, I wish they were this way, I wish they were that way. And when we finish all that, then we do that to ourselves. I should be like this, I should be like that, I wish I was this, I wish I was that, you know? Duality, the mind that compares this versus that. And at its core, and this is a great question for Bob to bring up because he'll get into, great detail on this, but at its very core, duality starts with the separation of self versus other. And because of that, we give recognition to the I, the sense of self, the ego, the pride. And all suffering comes from that view. So, that's what I have to say about duality.
I always saw it as we label things good and bad, and that's duality.
It is. Yeah, absolutely it is. Versus it isn't. Right? Yeah.
So you would say that.
Go ahead.
So you say in order to not suffer, accepting things the way they are, it's just this. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just this.
So what you said, to repeat it, if I heard it correctly, is what you're saying, I'm saying is that to not suffer is to accept things as they are, not good or bad, just as they are. Yes. Versus no. See, and that's where you're stuck because right? So in conventional sense, like dialogue, conversation, we want to intellectually understand this stuff. So you have a question, you want an answer, you want me to agree or disagree. But it is in that actual act that we miss it all. But, yes. Right? I was going to say to Chuck, and that's where you get into the Heart Sutra. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Form is precisely emptiness, emptiness is precisely form. Google the Heart Sutra, read it, you won't understand, it's not meant to be understood. Right? All of Buddhism talks about, the Four Noble Truths, the suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path, right? This is what the entire body of Buddhist teachings is based on, is the Four Noble Truths. And yet the Heart Sutra says there is no suffering, there is no cause of suffering, there is no cessation of suffering, and there is no path. There is no wisdom or any attainment. Sounds extremely contradictory to everything you just read on Google. Non-duality. Right? But on a very conventional, practical, how am I going to get through my day and be happier mode, stick with what you just said. If we go beyond the good versus bad, and we accept things, I don't even like the word accept. If we embrace things as they are, because when we say I accept, you have someone in your life, you say, well, I don't really like them, but I accept them, right? So I don't really like this, but I'm going to accept it. What we're often saying in that situation is, I think they're wrong or it's wrong, but I'm going to be okay with it, right? So this isn't about acceptance. I said that word, and that's why I kind of caught it right away. It's about embracing that it is like this. Mm-hmm. And if we know that our entire lives on a very practical level are not going to work out how we want it to, then if we can embrace that, it makes things much easier, I say this a lot, but how many of you thought X amount of years ago that you'd be sitting here on a Tuesday night at 7:30? I sure as heck didn't. So, yeah. Other questions? Go ahead. Hang on. Here first, and then we'll go there.
Me.
Yeah, you.
But
But.
lots of things we don't like and we don't want to accept. And we do everything we can to change that thing. But if at the same time we can be unattached to the outcome, is that what you're saying?
What I'm suggesting is that when I look at, these two phrases, conventional reality and ultimate reality. Ultimate reality is these kind of Buddhist concepts, and even Buddhist concepts themselves are constructs and ideas, right? Ultimate reality is the form is emptiness, emptiness is form type of stuff. Conventional reality is, okay, that all sounds great, but how am I going to get through my day? And so with what you just said, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're recognizing potentially something that your ego, yourself, is saying, I don't like this. And you're wanting it to be different. But you're not going to attach to the outcome, which is they are probably not going to be different. Right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Like when a loved one is sick.
Yes.
You don't like it, you do what you can to change it, but in your own heart, you know that you may not get the outcome you want.
Correct.
And your job then is to be gracious about it.
Yes. To be with it when we see loved ones who are ill, or as we age and at any stage of our lives, any sort of sickness, that's what the Buddha taught. Birth, aging, sickness, death. Right? That's what we get. Right? Nobody can escape that. So when we are faced with that, right, and we bear witness to that, and we're present with the aging and the sickness and the things that come with that, all the resistance and fighting of it doesn't change it. So you said the word graciously, I think, right? So if we can graciously be with it,
Yeah.
and then that's kind of that opening of the heart, the softening of the heart, the resistance to it, the fighting to it, the struggle, it makes it worse, I think.
Yeah, well, one feels one should try up to a certain point, and then realize that it's probably out of our hands anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a duality.
Well, everything is a duality.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
accept it, I don't like it, I want to change it, but I'll accept it. Because I don't have a choice.
Yes. It's exactly what I would have said.
You probably did.
Yeah.
For somebody just starting out with interest in meditation and Buddhism, can you recommend any kind of readings or
Yes.
movies, classes?
Yes. All the above. Readings, movies, and classes all help. I suggest watching Fight Club. Since you said movies, I suggest watching The Matrix. And I suggest watching Groundhog Day. Have you seen all three of those?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Now that you're interested in Buddhism, have like a marathon and watch all three. But look at them from, do you know, is this day one of Buddhism? You've never read a book, never Googled anything, and you're just like, I know I met you downstairs like an hour ago, but like how much, if at all, reading or have you done?
Well, I'm mainly interested in meditation.
Right.
And I've just read a couple things about Vipassana
Yes.
meditation.
Yes.
So, but I really don't know anything about it other than clearly it's good for you.
Clearly, yeah. At least all these people here tonight think the same thing. So, what I'll tell you, a couple things to tell you. So the meditation mindfulness movement that's kind of caught this culture by storm is beautiful. It's wonderful. I'm happy it's there. But, a dear friend, Karmalekshi Somo, who's a Tibetan Buddhist nun of 40, 50 years, she said that mindfulness or meditation without moral, ethical behavior won't get you so far. So if you're an angry person who meditates, you know what you're going to become? An angry meditator. So I don't want to scare you into thinking that there might be more to this whole thing than just meditation. But since you are at the Intro to Buddhism class, I'm going to say the meditation, I'll get to your question eventually, but even if you look at, it's called the Eightfold Path. Okay, and I referenced this very quickly earlier. The Four Noble Truths, the suffering, the cause of suffering, greed, anger, ignorance, the ending of suffering, right, which is nirvana, liberation, and the last one is the Eightfold Path. This is the path that the Buddha said is required to practice to end suffering. Correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. Those are 8 things, right? View, thought, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. You know where meditation is on that list? Last. It is a very critical piece, and most people come into this path through meditation because we're stressed out, we're anxious, we're angry, our heart rate's going through, our psychiatrist said we need to meditate, whatever it is, right? So it is very beneficial. But don't be afraid to, which is why you're asking the question, to dabble into some of that loving kindness, compassion stuff that Buddhism talks about, because it's extremely helpful, especially towards self, right? Vipassana means insight. It's a beautiful practice. Every Wednesday night here, we do a loving kindness, which is the Vipassana metta practice, right? Either Irene or a Jason or a Josh or an Alex will lead. They kind of rotate around. Wednesdays is a great practice for Vipassana. Movies, I already told you those 3, right? Watch them with more of a Buddhist lens, coming from that place. Books, there's a book called Lotus in the Stream, written by Master Xing, translated by Tom Graham. Wonderful book. I think the best intro to Buddhism book out there. It's out of print. You can get it on Amazon used. The used ones work just as well as the new ones. Every basic Buddhist topic, karma, dependent origination, Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, rebirth, how to practice Buddhism. It's like 10 to 15 pages each chapter, each topic. Such a beautiful foundation. After that, I recommend personally Zen Mind, Beginner Mind. I really think if you have those 2 books, that'll hold you over for the next, you're young enough, the next 50 years. Those help? Yeah. And, explore different Buddhist places, different Buddhist practices. We're spoiled in San Diego. We have probably 30 temples within a 20-mile radius. I'm not even kidding. That's really beautiful. Check them all out. See where you're comfortable. You'll go to some of them, 5 minutes in, you'll be extremely uncomfortable. At some of them, stay. Stay for the hour. You don't have to go back, but stay. See what it does to you. And enjoy learning about it all, because it's fascinating. Yeah? Anything else? We'll do one more if anyone has a question. Yeah?
Where did you study?
Where did I study?
You were in
What or where or when?
Where?
Where? So my quick background is I took a Chinese civilization class in college 23 years ago because my brother said it would be an easy A. It was. Chinese Civ 174 ruined my life forever, thanks to my brother Joel. Actually, my parents should blame him, not me. We had to read Intro to Zen by D.T. Suzuki. Read the book, aligned with so much of how I saw the world, even though as a 20-year-old college kid, living some little Zen Buddhist life was the last thing on my mind, Graduated college, did consulting for 7 years, started at a Buddhist temple here in San Diego, a Taiwanese Buddhist temple, in the Pure Land Chan, which is Zen tradition. It's about a mile from here. You could hit a golf ball pretty much there if you got a good roll on the on the street. Spent about 2 to 3 years there, and then moved to their monastery in Taiwan and kind of lived Zen monk life for 11 months. Didn't ordain, not a monk, never been a monk, but lived with them for nearly a year. And no money, no keys, no wallet, no phone, just my crazy head for 11 months. So much fun. And then came back because my master said, you got to figure out a way to introduce Buddhist practice to local folks. And she asked me 9 months in how I was doing. I said, great, I don't want to leave. And she said, time for you to go. I said, no, wait, wrong answer. Can I stay? So that was January 2006. So for the last 13 years, I've been studying and practicing right here with all of you lovely folks. So thank you all for your practice. Yeah. So, and I'll kind of close with this thought that, often it's exotic to think like, oh, I'm going to go to the Himalayan mountains, or I'm going to go, to India, and I'm going to go on all the way around the world. You travel half around the world, you spend a lot of money, you get up to the mountaintop, the madness that's in your head right now goes with you. And you just spend a lot of money, you know what I mean? So everybody's different. Obviously for me, yes, I had to go through something like that to have the experience I did, to come back and recognize the difference between the two lifestyles. But I always let people know that just because you go away or go somewhere, my master used to say, just because you shave your head and put on a robe doesn't make you a monk. And, our conditions, we're lay people. We're not monks, we're not nuns, right? We're lay people. So the best place to practice is right here. It's in traffic on the 805 freeway at 5 o'clock, right? It's at Starbucks when they make your latte the wrong way. It's at a restaurant when the, waiter or waitress doesn't bring your food quick enough, or it's not cooked properly. It's with the family members that drive you crazy. I'm just taking a guess, you might have one of those, right? Those are the places of practice. That's where practice matters, right? Living in a mountain somewhere, living in a robe somewhere, having a simple, peaceful life, that was an escape. This is practice. So, I just saved you a lot of money, man. You're welcome. So we'll join palms. We'll do a transfer of merit. May the benefit of this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Maddie during her time of suffering, and to Kevin and Kathy during their suffering as well, and to Shabazz during his time of suffering. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. So a couple quick announcements. Thanks all for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this little temple initially 12 years ago downtown to introduce Buddhist practice to local folks. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our unenlightened view of the Buddhist teachings and share it with a bunch of other unenlightened folks. No offense to the enlightened ones out there. We gather every night, different, kind of to your question earlier, we built this to introduce all the different schools of Buddhism, not one specifically. So people often say, like, what type of Buddhism are we? We're the good type, We share all the basic schools of Buddhist practice. And so every night something different going on. Every Thursday, 5 o'clock, we do a food redistribution program. I still think it's the best thing around here. We prepare gourmet vegetarian meals, picking up food that would be wasted or thrown away, and we pass it out to a couple hundred people who sleep on the streets every night downtown. So anytime you think your life sucks and you lack gratitude, go feed some people who sleep on a sidewalk every night, and it tends to put things into perspective, and your life then might not seem so tragic. A couple things out of the ordinary. I've been just announcing it so you know. We started on Monday our 10-week Dharma Bum Life program. I know some of you here are in it. So what that means, unfortunately, for 10 weeks is we put our Monday night Zen group, in case you already penciled that one in, and our Thursday night Dharma Bum Basics on hold for 10 weeks. We don't have the space for it. Downstairs groups are, we use the space downstairs every night. So those two classes are on hold for 10 weeks. For first Saturday of the month, so coming up here, we do a day of silence. It's 4 hours of silence. So if 20 minutes of silence is torture, you'll love 4 hours. It's like watching TV with the TV off. It's phenomenal. Thursday night, John Bruna, wonderful. He was a former Buddhist monk. We had him here a couple years ago. Great guy, great teacher, great practitioner. He'll be here Thursday night at 7. So if you get a chance to come for that, it'll be excellent, nice treat. And Friday night for movie night, we do Dharma Bum Theater every Friday night. We're showing the movie The Cup. Anyone's seen it? It's about the director is actually a pretty famous Tibetan Lama, and he's a movie director as well. And it takes place in one of the monasteries, and it's kids, kind of young lamas, little monks who love soccer. And it's based on a true story, and the World Cup is happening. So 10-year-old boys who are lamas in a monastery, or 10-year-old kids, are still 10-year-old kids. And it's what they go through to try to get access to watching the World Cup. I've just posted the event today. Even if you just watch the trailer just makes you smile. So we'll be showing that Friday night at 7. It's a beautiful film. Everything we do is free. We just want people to find a sense of peace in their lives and share that with others. So thanks all for being here, and good luck with that duality stuff.